so now we're going to take the backing up exercise up to the saddle. And it's not all that different from what we just did on the groundwork version. So the key to a good backup, mechanically, a mechanically correct backup, is really to think up and then back, rather than backing up. And so from the saddle, depending on how the horse's head and neck is, like just there, he elevates his head and neck, I'm going to go through a process of using my torso, using my body first to give direction. Then I'm going to give leg, right? So the leg says move, and then a light contact on the bit with the bit pressure lifted into the upper jaw says don't move forward. Then if I need to, I can add in a little tap with the whip, which again means don't move forward. Or it means move, but not necessarily forward. So he's crooked, he's a bit distracted. I'm going to start with my body, thinking upward, not leaning backward. I'm definitely thinking upward. So I'm lengthening my legs down. I'm lengthening my back muscles up without arching my back or throwing my shoulders back. It's just a gentle upward direction from the seat bones to the skull and a gentle downward direction from the seat bones to my feet, right? Then I'm going to take a light contact. So if he does go forward, I can sort of resist that right away. So up through my seat bones to skull. Then I'm giving leg, right? And if that isn't enough to get him to move, I'm going to lift my hands so that I get the bit pressure off the lower jaw entirely. Even though it looks a bit ridiculous, I'm increasing the pressure up into the corners of the mouth. Then, if he still doesn't respond, I'm going to give a light tap with the whip. Right? So the whip is kind of the final backup plan, and I'm just sort of tapping him on the shoulder because my hands are busy. And then I'm going to redo it. So I give it about to the count of 3 for each phase of the aid. So I think up and maybe back, but definitely not forward. But I don't lean back. I don't really make a gesture. It's just directing my energy up, down through the legs. Then I'm going to squeeze the legs as I take a little bit shorter rein. Then I'm going to elevate the bit pressure into the corners of the mouth. Right? So I want him to think up through his front end before he goes back. And if that's not enough, I'm going to tap with the whip, and just a step or two is fine. He's never really done this, and usually if I apply any bit pressure, he overcurls his neck, he drops his back, chomps the bit. It's just kind of horrible. So I'm pretty happy that he's just listening. It's pretty good. So up through my back, I add the leg. He thought forward, but I just had a light resistance on the reins. Then if I'm going to increase rein pressure, I'm going to bring, that was good. That time I didn't need the whip. Right? So it's not as easy for him with me on his back as it was on the ground. So I'm just going to let him adjust, and I'm going to repeat. So up through my torso, add the leg as I gather the reins, lift the bit into the corners of the mouth, and there I got a couple of steps backwards. And there's a little bit of his old response, so I don't want to ask for too much at one time. As soon as I feel him come up, I could stop there and reward that. Or I could hold the feeling of up until he actually takes a step backwards. So then we'll redo it. First my torso, 2, 3, my legs, 2, 3, the bit up, 2, 3, a little bit of pressure, and that time he figured it out. He completely dropped his back for that backup, right? So I'm going to ask him forward. Nope, this time we're going forward. I'm going to ask for halt very slowly. I know. And we're going to redo it. So I'm a little closer to the camera. It might be easier to see. So first up through my torso, add leg, lift the bit into the corner of the mouth, add a little pressure. And if I feel him moving around, sort of exploring, then I'm not going to do more, but I'm not going to do less. That was good. That was much better. So he actually sort of brought his hind leg under him in order to back up. Wasn't perfect, but we'll redo it. So up through my back, 2, 3, add leg, 2, 3, lift the bit into the corner of the mouth. He's figuring it out, so I'm just going to hold and wait. My leg is still on, my back is still directing. There. And I just waited until I got a perceptible step. That was pretty good. We'll redo it a couple more times. First the back, 2, 3, the legs, 2, 3, lift the bit. Excellent. So now he's getting the idea. He's understanding the cues or the direction that I'm giving him with my body. So from here, he's going to try to figure out how to get more and more comfortable and get better at it. So my back, 2, 3. He's already got his back dropped, so this is going to be tricky. My legs, 2, 3. Even if he's high-headed, there. And this time I'm just going to ask for a few extra steps. If he goes forward, I just resist, but I don't pull against him. I just lift the bit into the corners of the mouth until he figures it out. That was much better. Good boy. And then if I want him to know the difference between forward and backing, this time my energy is still, I'm up, I'm vertical, but I'm thinking forward, not backward. So and I had no bit resistance or rein resistance, so he knew to go forward. So now if I ask for backwards, I'm going to have a little bit shorter rein. I'm going to go up with my body, add my leg, but I'm just thinking backwards, right? Then I'm going to lift the bit into the corners of the mouth as high as I need to go. And then I'm going to wait. If I feel him sort of shifting around, I'm not going to be too quick with the final aid of the bit. There, he's sort of trying, but he's pushing forward. So I'm just going to wait. And if he gets really stuck, I'll tap with the whip. So there, he's just pushing down and pushing against me. So I'm going to wait for the up. Even though he's moving backwards, there's the up. He just lightened the pressure on my hand a little bit. When they start to push up through the sternum, through the chest, the pecs, and the front legs, that's what makes them light on our hand. So when he overcurled his neck and was going down and pulling my hand down, then I know he's pushing himself backwards, right? So I just waited. Even though he gave me a couple of steps backwards, what I really want him to learn is the up and then the back. And that to me is the only mechanical advantage of backing up, is to teach them that. And I go, otherwise, any fool can get a horse to back up by sort of doing this, right? And pulling the reins. A horse will back up, but mechanically very dysfunctional. So I'm going to do 1 or 2 more. First with my back on a little bit of a light contact, then the legs, then I'm going to lift the bit. That's better. Yes, and that time I felt his back, and even though he overcurled the neck a little bit, there was a tiny bit of up coming through the front legs. That was pretty good. All right, we'll do 1 more. I know, you're all crooked. So from halt, I'm going to use my back, 2, 3, legs, 2, 3, lift the bit as I increase pressure on the reins upward, right? Very good. Much better. I'm going to ask a little bit more. Maybe tap with the whip. There's the up. Great. There's the up and back. That one was beautifully done. Yeah. So even though he overcurls the neck a little and gets a little mouthy, it's sort of that feeling of the saddle, the shoulders coming up, and then very controlled backwards, coming from back here, and you'll actually feel the back sort of fill out the saddle, as opposed to right now with his back dropped, I'm sort of sitting in a hole. So that's how I teach rein back or backing up. It's not that different from what I showed on the ground. And if I'm going to teach a horse to back up, or if I'm going to use it as part of rehab, that's how I'm going to do it. And it takes a little longer for them to learn, but you have a lot more advantages to helping them discover better coordination, better movement by doing it that way.